How would you react if a nun felt an emotion she was forbidden to know? The very first moment a man touched a spot he ought not to. That query hung heavy in the Kansas summer breeze in 1893. On a scorching section of the Santa Fe Path near the Arkansas River, a young sister was suspended from a tree, her wrists bound high above her head, her ankles tied to two separate cords pulled wide apart, her boots kicking at empty space. Sister Sarah Lane was just 22, and she had already fled from the church she once relied on. But the reality was quieter and more risky because she did not believe in the church anymore. She was running toward her own identity. Her robe was ripped at the sleeves, her arms lacked feeling, and her throat was sore from pleading with no one around to hear. She still wore the religious clothing, not for the faith, but because it was the only item she possessed. The path was vacant. No carts, no travelers except one distant shadow watching then riding away. Only insects buzzing in the warmth. And if you believe that is the worst event that happens to a runaway nun out here, you are mistaken. Then a horse exhaled, leather squeaked, and boots struck the soil. Jacob Thorne, a 48-year-old farmer with dirt on his hat and old wounds in his eyes, noticed the ropes first. Then he noticed the girl. Not a wrongdoer, not a sign, a woman tied up and abandoned like a hunted animal. He did not ask questions. He went up the trunk, sliced the cords, and grabbed her as her weight dropped forward. That action saved her life and nearly destroyed his. In that split second, his hand slid where it never should have gone, not from want but from reflex, to stop her from hitting the earth. Sarah took a sharp breath. Her breathing paused. Her body answered before her beliefs could halt it. She pulled away just enough to whisper, her voice trembling with embarrassment and something much worse. "Your hands! That was improper!" Her eyes did not match her words. She gulped and looked away quickly, as if she could conceal her face from God and herself. But her cheeks remained burning hot regardless. Jacob stopped moving. He moved back so quickly he almost fell. He raised his hands where she could view them, like a man proving he meant no hurt. "I apologize," he stated, and his voice sounded scratchy, but the harm was already done. Not to her physical form, but to her confidence, and Jacob understood it too. One incorrect moment could chase a man for the rest of his days. Because Sarah realized then that Victor Pike had not been the most frightening thing she would encounter. The true fear was understanding she could not return to feeling nothing. And somewhere between the dirt, the cords on the soil, and the man who rescued her without taking anything, Sarah Lane took her initial step away from the faith. But the path forward was not kindness, it was a result, and the farmer who cut her down was about to deal with something far worse than regret. Remain with this tale because what happened after that moment beneath the tree would alter both of them forever. Jacob kept his gaze on the path, not on her, as if looking too long might make the entire situation worse. Sarah sat sideways behind him, one hand holding the saddle handle and the other pressed to her own wrist where the rope had sliced deep. They rode in the heavy Kansas warmth until the trees became fewer and the fields opened up. A low ranch house appeared, wood faded by the sun, and a small fenced area, a water tank that looked like paradise itself. Jacob assisted her down, without touching more than was needed. He gave her a metal cup and said, "Sip slowly. You fainted on me, and I do not wish to carry you twice in one day." It was the first comment that nearly made her grin. Inside, the home smelled of coffee, leather, and animals. No elegant speech, no church silence, just actual living. Jacob located a clean cloth, poured water over it, and extended it. "Display your wrists." She held them out. He covered them softly and tied the fabric the way a man secures a gate lock, strong but gentle. "Do you possess a name?" Jacob inquired, then added, "besides sister?" "Sarah," she stated. "Sarah," he said again like he was testing the sound of it. Then he cleared his throat. "I did not intend to, back there." "I know," she said too quickly. She sat at his kitchen table and gazed at her hands as if they belonged to another person. Jacob placed a dish in front of her, beans and bread. Nothing sacred, just a meal. "Eat," he stated. Sarah took a bite and felt her throat squeeze, not because it tasted pleasant, but because no one had told her she could simply eat without deserving it. When she finally spoke, it sounded disorganized. She told him she departed the church outside Wichita, not because she ceased believing, but because she could not breathe in there any longer. She said there were things she witnessed, things people acted like they did not see, and she was not made for acting. Then she ceased speaking and observed his hands as if she was still choosing if she could rely on him. She had joined a group of wagons going toward Dodge City, thinking she could vanish into the large world. They stopped near the river, and in the heat she walked away for water. The wagons moved on without her, just dust and space. By the time she ran back, all she viewed was the final wagon getting smaller on the grasslands. Then Victor Pike came out of the bushes like a dark idea. You cannot escape. Jacob's jaw became firm at the name. I have heard of him, he said. Men like that do not quit after one evil deed. He is returning, Sarah said. Jacob walked to the window and looked out at the open ground as if he could already view a man riding toward them. You are secure here tonight, he said, as secure as I can make you. Sarah agreed, but her stomach dropped because she recalled Victor's grin, and she recalled the way he said he preferred women who belonged to God because it made destroying them feel like a sport. Jacob turned from the window and his voice became emotionless. Finish your meal, Sarah, then tell me everything he stated, because out on that path, Jacob had cut her down. Now he was about to decide what to do with the man who put her up there. Sarah told Jacob what Victor had said, and she disliked that her voice trembled on the worst sections, not because she was frail, but because she was weary of being afraid. She explained the way Victor grinned first, like he was kind, like he was just another rider. Then she explained the way his eyes shifted when he saw her religious clothing. He did not just desire her money, he desired her embarrassment. He desired a tale he could drag into town and trade for laughs. Jacob listened without speaking, but his face became calm. The type of calm that meant something inside him had already stood up. When she finished, he nodded once and said, "All right." 2 words, but they felt like a door shutting. Jacob had survived long enough to know a law. If you allow a cruel man to tell the tale, you spend years cleaning up the ending. He went outside and inspected the fence gate, then the window locks, then the barn. He listened for the sound of hooves. Not panicked, just regular. Sarah watched from the entry, holding a cup of coffee that had turned cold. "Do you possess a rifle?" she inquired. Jacob looked over. "Certainly." "Are you going to utilize it?" He shook his head. "Only if I must." Then he added, "Victor likes simple targets. He will not discover one here." Sarah tried to laugh, but it sounded weak. "You do not even know me." Jacob looked at her as if she had said something odd. "I know enough. I lost my spouse to sickness 10 years ago. I have seen what happens when decent people look the other direction. I am not doing that again. You were tied up in a tree. You did not do that to yourself." They sat at the kitchen table again. The lamp was dim, the summer evening pushing against the glass. Insects chirping outside. A solitary owl somewhere near the river. The house smelled of coffee and sun-baked timber. Sarah's wrists ached under the cloth covers. Jacob poured water into a bowl and placed it in front of her. "Clean up," he said. "Nobody sleeps well covered in trail dirt." She washed her face and stared at her image in the dark glass. A nun, a runaway, a woman who had felt a forbidden spark and did not know what to do with it. Behind her, Jacob cleared his throat. "You can take the bed and I will take the seat." He said it like it was no major issue, but Sarah noticed he kept his boots on, as if he planned to be awake if the night turned bad. She lay down fully dressed, hands folded over her stomach as if she still belonged to the church. But her mind did not belong to the church anymore. It kept replaying the moment under the tree, the sudden heat in her cheeks, the way her heart had jumped like it recognized life. Just before she slept, she heard Jacob speak softly from the other room. Not to her exactly, more like to the darkness. "Come on, Victor, make your mistake.
And that was when Sarah realized something that frightened her even more than Victor. Jacob was not just guarding her, he was waiting for a battle.
If you are enjoying the story so far, go ahead and press subscribe. It assists more than you would imagine. Now take a sip of your tea, get comfortable, and tell me this. What is the time where you are right now, and where are you listening from? Because the next sound that rolled across Jacob's farm was not an owl. It was a horse, and whoever wrote it wanted Jacob to know he was not alone out there. The hoofbeat stayed slow, like whoever was out there wanted to be heard. Not hurried, not anxious, just sure. Jacob did not reach for the rifle on the wall. He reached for his hat. That told Sarah everything she needed to know. This was not a scared man guarding a house. This was a rancher stepping out to handle business. Sarah slipped off the bed and walked softly to the hallway, careful with her sore wrists. Jacob held up one finger, a quiet sign to stay back. But Sarah had spent too many years obeying people who did not earn it, so she stayed close enough to listen. Jacob opened the door and the night air poured in, warm and dusty, carrying that river scent from the Arkansas. Moonlight laid silver on the fence rails, and there he sat, Victor Pike, resting on his horse like he had all the time in the world. A handgun sat low on his hip, and his hand rested close to it, like a habit. Out past the fence line, a second horse stood in the dark. Rider or no rider, it was hard to determine. He tipped his hat with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Good evening, Thorn." Jacob's voice stayed calm. "That depends on why you were here." Victor made a clicking sound like he was speaking to a stubborn animal. "I misplaced something today." His thumb brushed the leather near his weapon, not pulling it, just reminding Jacob it existed. Jacob did not blink. "Try searching beneath the tree where you abandoned her." Victor laughed softly and unpleasantly. "Now that is the issue, isn't it? I do not like losing." His eyes slid past Jacob, searching for Sarah in the shadows. Then he smiled wider. "Strange thing about Dodge City. People love a good tale. A man alone with a young nun out here on the riverland. People will speak, and talk turns mean real fast." Sarah felt her stomach twist. So this was his plan, not just to take her back, but to ruin them both with words. Jacob stepped down onto the porch, boots steady on the wood. "You are on my land," he said, "and I do not accept threats from men who hide behind talk." Victor shrugged. "I came here to collect, so shoot me." He opened his arms a little. "Go on, make me the victim." Jacob did not take the trap. Jacob knew a gunshot could wake every hungry man within 10 miles. Instead, he walked off the porch and closed the distance, slow and purposeful. Victor's horse shifted, sensing the change in the air. Sarah saw Jacob's hands were empty, no gun, no knife, just a man who looked like he had decided something long before tonight. Victor leaned forward in the saddle and lowered his voice. "Your hands were wrong," he laughed under his breath. "Wait until folks hear what else they will imagine." Jacob's eyes went flat. "Put your hand on that gun and you will not pull it again," he said. Victor grinned like he did not believe him. Then Jacob moved one hard step, then another right into Victor's space. And Sarah realized the terrifying part wasn't Victor showing up. It was what Jacob was about to do without a weapon under the open sky. Because the next sound wasn't hoofbeats at all. It was Jacob crashing into Victor's leg and horse gear at the same time. Leather snapped. Victor grabbed for his weapon, and then he hit the ground hard out by the fence line. That second horse got scared and ran into the dark, empty saddle. Looked like Victor came alone after all, or his friend thought better of it. Victor hit the dirt hard and the night went quiet for half a second, like even the insects wanted to see what happened next. Jacob stood over him, breathing steady, not angry loud, just angry controlled. Victor tried to laugh, but it came out like a cough. "You think this makes you a hero?" he spat. Jacob did not smile. "It makes me tired," he said. "Tired of men who only feel big when they make others feel small." Victor rolled, reaching for something at his belt. "Ah!" Jacob was quicker. He grabbed Victor's wrist and twisted until the fingers opened. A small blade dropped into the dust. Jacob kicked it away. Jacob took Victor's weapon and spun the cylinder,
calm as an experienced worker. Then he put the gun in his pocket. "You will march into town with me at dawn, alive and speaking directly to the lawman. No gunfire, no fame. Gunfire brings cousins and friends and funerals. Learned that the hard way outside Abilene." Jacob wanted a clean ending, not a war, just a clean ending to a dirty threat. Sarah stepped onto the porch before she could talk herself out of it. Her voice trembled, but it did not break. "Look at me," she said. Victor turned his head, and his grin tried to come back until he saw her eyes. Not fear, not shame, something harder, choice. "You are going to Dodge City at sunrise," Jacob said. Jacob walked him into the barn and slid the heavy door shut. Then he sat on the porch with Victor's weapon in his hand and waited for morning. "If you ever come near this ranch again, you will not get a second ride out," Jacob said. Victor spat in the dirt and muttered about stories, about people talking. Sarah looked at the open grasslands and realized something. People were always going to talk. They talked when she wore the religious clothes, they talked when she left the church, they talked when she got saved under a tree, and they would talk again if she chose a new life.
Jacob walked back toward her and stopped a polite distance away. "I apologize," he said quietly, "about the tree, about all of it." Sarah swallowed. "For the first time in a long while, I do not need an apology," she said. "I need a direction." Jacob nodded like he understood more than she had said. "You do not have to be sister here," he told her. "You can just be Sarah." That night, she sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, and the world felt different. Not easier, but honest. And shame only works when you handed the keys. So, here's the question for you. Have you ever had to fight for the right to live free, no matter what folks say? And if you have, what was the price? Pride? Peace? Or both? Another question, if the whole town spoke about you tomorrow, would you still stand by what you know is right? Sarah did. She chose to stop running in circles and start walking forward, not toward perfection, but toward peace. If this story moved you even a little, hit the like button. It helps this channel reach more folks who need a good tale tonight. And if you want more true stories left behind, subscribe so you do not miss the next one. By the time they reach town, the story will already be waiting for them, because when the sun comes up, Victor will not be the only one heading to Dodge City. Sarah is going too, and whatever name she chooses when she gets there, well, that is a story for another night.